Never stop learning. That's the principle SpaceX seems to live by, especially when rockets falter, systems break, and progress feels like it hangs in the balance. After a recent and very public setback involving a COPV, or composite overwrapped pressure vessel, the company is already deep into the process of analysis and refinement. They're not waiting for answers to arrive by accident, they're forcing them out of steel and fire, with test stands roaring and data streaming across screens at every moment. The question on everyone's mind now, can Flight 10 still make it off the pad before the month ends? With the clock ticking, and engineers working around the clock, that answer is anything but certain. But if history has taught us anything, it's that SpaceX doesn't back down. Not after failure. Not ever. Meanwhile, as work continues at Starbase, the wider landscape of space policy and infrastructure is shifting. The U.S. Air Force has officially pulled the plug on its proposed Starship landing pad, a surprising move that adds yet another twist to the evolving relationship between military agencies and commercial space. At the same time, Congress is taking steps to ring-fence NASA's Space Launch System, perhaps as a political counterbalance to SpaceX's rapid progress. These aren't isolated events. They're part of a broader dynamic where innovation, competition, and government priorities are all colliding in orbit. Back at the heart of the action, one technical issue stands out above the rest. The COPV anomaly. Quiet, cylindrical, and tucked deep within the rocket's internal framework, the composite overwrapped pressure vessel doesn't look like much. But its function is vital. It stores pressurized gases, like nitrogen, used for tasks such as purging systems and spinning up the engines before ignition. If the COPV fails, the entire engine system is at risk. It's a small part, but a critical one. And when that system cracked under pressure during Ship 36 testing, the entire Starship program felt the impact. That's why recent developments at the McGregor test facility are drawing so much attention. Observers captured images of what appeared to be a dramatic, controlled detonation. In the blink of an eye, an object rocketed skyward, trailing debris and vapor. For those in the know, it looked like a test, an intentional recreation of the kind of failure that crippled S-36. Experts believe this was SpaceX running a high-stress validation of the COPV system, pushing it to, and perhaps beyond, its limits in order to better understand how and why it failed. This isn't destruction for destruction's sake. It's the scientific method, SpaceX style. Recreate the environment, isolate the variables, and learn. The lessons taken from such a test are invaluable. They form the blueprint for the next redesign, the next upgrade, the next step forward. And according to Elon Musk himself, the failure was especially surprising. The nitrogen COPV failed at a pressure below its rated proof level. That's deeply concerning. It means something unseen, something subtle or systemic, may be at play. That, in turn, makes solving the issue all the more urgent. Pressure vessels like these aren't just passive tanks. They're lifelines. They support the pre-burn procedures that ignite the Raptor engines. They maintain system integrity through the violent shaking and acceleration of launch. They must hold firm through supersonic winds, temperature swings, and acoustic vibrations that would shatter concrete. And with the Starship program aiming higher than ever before, toward full reusability, toward crewed flights, and ultimately toward Mars, there's zero room for uncertainty. Which brings us to the next flight, S-37. Ship 37 is already positioned inside Mega Bay 2, where engineers are working meticulously to prepare it for a static fire test. This ship represents more than another prototype. It's the next attempt. The next chance to prove that SpaceX has learned, adjusted, and improved. Before that static fire can proceed, however, every aspect of the COPV system must be vetted, upgraded, and validated. This isn't just about passing a test, it's about laying the foundation for the next generation of spacecraft. Meanwhile, over at the launch site, a different kind of transformation is taking place. The ring wall stand, one of the structural elements that support Starship during integration and pre-launch ops, has undergone significant upgrades. New images show that it's been fitted with wider, reinforced legs. These legs aren't permanently attached to the orbital launch mount, suggesting a more flexible approach to support hardware. Instead of being fixed, the ring stand can now be repositioned or removed as needed. That adaptability may be key as operations become more frequent and varied. Inside Mega Bay 2, another interesting detail has surfaced. A new ship quick disconnect, or ship QD, arm has been spotted. These systems allow the rocket to interface with the ground support equipment, transferring fuel, data, and power during critical pre-launch moments. It's unclear whether this new QD arm is intended for Pad A or the in-progress Pad B. Since Pad B still lacks an operational ship QD, it's possible this new unit is a placeholder or a modular solution to support tests at Pad A. That would make sense, especially if SpaceX intends to conduct the static fire without using the full launch tower, placing the ship directly on the orbital mount. Everything now hinges on the success of this next static fire. It's more than a procedural step, it's a moment of truth. Earlier tests focused heavily on engine ignition, tank pressurization, and flight software. This time, the spotlight is on the COPV system. Engineers will be watching every data stream, every sensor, and every pressure reading with laser focus. The goal is to catch even the faintest hint of instability before it becomes a catastrophe. Assuming all goes well, the plan is to roll Ship 37 back into Mega Bay 2 for a full post-test inspection. Engineers will pore over every joint, every weld, every millimeter of carbon fiber and steel. They'll run ultrasonic scans, thermal mapping, and stress tests. If needed, they'll install more upgrades, better shielding, enhanced mounts, refined pipework. Every improvement brings them closer to a safer, more capable Starship. But one risk remains. This test won't be happening at Massey, the facility often used for destructive evaluations. This test will take place at PADA, the primary orbital launch site. That raises the stakes. A failure here could damage not just the vehicle, but the pad itself. The launch tower. The mount. The tank farm. Infrastructure damage would mean weeks or even months of delays, putting the entire testing cadence at risk. It's a gamble. But it's one SpaceX seems ready to take, confident in their redesign and their readiness. If the test succeeds, and that's still a big if, then Flight 10 becomes a real possibility. The 10th integrated flight of Starship and Super Heavy. A major milestone. One that brings us closer to routine orbital launches and eventually full reusability. Flight 10 will aim to do everything its predecessors tried to achieve, but better. A clean launch. Orbital velocity. Controlled booster separation. A functioning second stage. Payload deployment. And perhaps most importantly, successful ocean landings of both the booster and the ship. That's the endgame. That's how SpaceX moves from testing to operations. Reusability remains the crown jewel of the Starship program. And to reach that, both stages must land intact. Soft ocean landings are a stepping stone to that goal, allowing engineers to study impacts, recovery methods, and degradation. A successful Flight 10 would validate not only the COPV redesign but the entire stack, from thrust vectoring to stage separation to aerodynamic control surfaces. And SpaceX isn't dreaming small. Internally, proposals have been circulating that call for as many as 25 Starship launches per year, just from Starbase. That level of frequency will demand flawless hardware, reliable turnarounds, and a launch infrastructure that can reset within days, not weeks. It's a monumental challenge. But every flight, every test, every static fire brings them closer. Now more than ever, SpaceX needs momentum. They need focus. And they need support, not just from engineers and executives, but from everyone who believes in the vision of a multiplanetary future. If you're watching this and feel inspired, if you see the value in pushing through the hard moments to unlock something greater, then this is your moment, too. Let your voice be heard. Type "Never Give Up" in the comments below. Because sometimes, belief itself becomes a fuel. One that powers not just rockets, but revolutions. Behind every update, every redesign, every test fire and rocket rollout, there are teams of engineers working around the clock, hidden from the spotlight, but carrying the weight of the future on their shoulders. While most eyes are drawn to the towering boosters and gleaming spacecraft, it's the quiet minds in control rooms, laboratories, and fabrication floors who move the mission forward, day by day, bolt by bolt. And none of it would be possible without you, our incredible viewers and supporters, who've helped us reach a new milestone, 180,000 subscribers. Your continued encouragement fuels this journey, and now we set our sights on 200,000. If you're one of the many who watch regularly but haven't subscribed yet, we invite you to take that small step. It helps us bring these stories to even more dreamers and space enthusiasts around the world. Now, as we shift our focus back to the stars, we find ourselves in the middle of a surprising development involving the United States Air Force and SpaceX. Just months ago, it seemed that a bold new partnership was emerging, one that could redefine military logistics using Starship as a rapid global cargo delivery system. The proposed location: Johnston Island, a remote patch of land in the Pacific once used for weapons testing, now at the center of a new logistical vision. The concept was stunning: Earth-to-Earth transport via orbital hops, with up to 10 landings per year on this strategic site over the next 4 years. What was once hailed as a groundbreaking initiative is now suspended, halted not by technical failure, but by environmental reality. Johnston Island is no longer just a military relic, it is now classified as a national wildlife refuge, managed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The region is home to vulnerable seabird colonies, delicate coral reefs, and marine ecosystems that cannot easily be relocated or rebuilt. In response to the proposed operations, a wave of concern rose from environmental groups. They voiced fears about fuel contamination, launch debris, acoustic disruption, and the long-term footprint of repeated landings. Over 3,800 signatures were gathered in opposition. And this wasn't just symbolic protest, these concerns carried weight. Ultimately, the U.S. Air Force acknowledged the pressure. In an official statement, the project was suspended, and the search for an alternative landing site began. It's a temporary pause, not a cancellation, but it significantly delays the timeline. Any new site will need to undergo rigorous environmental assessments, strategic planning, infrastructure evaluation, and international coordination. And so, while the vision for Starship as a global cargo shuttle is still alive, it's now locked in a holding pattern, waiting for the world to catch up. For SpaceX, this is just another challenge in a long list of obstacles that have shaped its history. The company knows better than most that setbacks are inevitable. What matters is how you respond to them. And that response, in this case, is clear: keep building, keep testing, and keep pushing the envelope. At Starbase in Texas and Cape Canaveral in Florida, expansion continues. New infrastructure is rising. Production lines are humming. The focus remains on proving the technology that will one day make Earth-to-Earth cargo operations not just possible, but routine. That means mastering orbital mechanics, perfecting rapid reusability, demonstrating payload deployment in space and reliable stage recovery. Every static fire, every booster catch attempt, every re-entry simulation feeds directly into that long-term vision. And if it takes more time, so be it. Better a delay than a disaster. When the mission is measured in decades and planets, the patience to do things right becomes more important than the pressure to do them fast. Ironically, while the Starship cargo program faces delays, another part of the space industry is seeing unexpected revival. Not long ago, some of NASA's most iconic programs were staring down the barrel of cancellation. Budget cuts threatened the Space Launch System, the Orion capsule, and the Lunar Gateway, a trio of legacy projects representing the agency's ambitions for deep space exploration. The initial White House proposal would have gutted these programs, raising alarm bells across the aerospace community. But as political tides shifted, so did the funding outlook. Now, thanks to a newly passed budget reconciliation bill, NASA has been granted a lifeline, $10 billion in new funding aimed at securing these key programs. It was a narrow passage, a 50-50 tie in the Senate, broken only by the vice president's vote, and a razor-thin margin of 218 to 214 in the House. But it passed. And with that, the future of Artemis 4 and 5 looks far more secure. The bill earmarks $4.1 billion for the construction of additional SLS rockets, safeguarding the heavy lift capability required for those future lunar missions. Another $2.6 billion will go toward the development of the Lunar Gateway, the small space station intended to orbit the Moon and serve as a staging point for lunar surface operations. Meanwhile, the Orion spacecraft, the capsule designed to ferry astronauts to and from lunar orbit, has received an additional $20 million in support funding. These numbers represent more than just money. They are political signals. Signals that, at least for now, the United States remains committed to a dual-track approach to space, 1 foot in the future with SpaceX and Starship, and 1 foot in the established legacy systems of NASA. It's a compromise, and compromises always come with tension. Critics argue that the SLS is over budget, behind schedule, and outdated compared to the fully reusable systems being developed by SpaceX. They question whether continuing to fund SLS and Orion is truly aligned with the nation's long-term goals in space. Others point to the Gateway's complex architecture and ask whether it's really necessary, especially when Starship could potentially dock directly with the Moon or other spacecraft. These concerns aren't new, but they are becoming louder. At the heart of the debate lies a difficult question: should we continue to invest billions into legacy systems that were conceived decades ago, or should those resources be redirected into faster, cheaper, and more agile alternatives like Starship? For some, the answer is obvious. Starship has already demonstrated orbital flight. It's being iterated at breakneck speed. And it offers capabilities, like full-stage reusability and massive payload capacity, that SLS simply cannot match. But for others, the legacy programs carry a different kind of value. They represent stability. They involve thousands of jobs spread across every U.S. state. They ensure that NASA remains at the center of American space policy. And in a world where political winds shift quickly, having multiple options on the table can be a form of insurance. And so we return to the core of the matter: where does the future of spaceflight truly lie? Is it with public institutions, or private enterprise? Is it better to bet on the tried and tested, or the experimental and ambitious? There are no easy answers. But what is certain is that we are in a transitional moment, a turning point between what space exploration used to be and what it's becoming. As we reflect on these developments, we want to hear your thoughts. Should Starship be receiving more support than legacy systems like SLS and Orion? Do you believe the dream of rapid cargo delivery via Earth-to-Earth flights is worth the environmental risks and delays? Or is it wiser to slow down and preserve the systems we already have? Let us know in the comments below. Join the conversation, because this is a dialogue that belongs to all of us. And while you're at it, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Great SpaceX if you haven't already. Your support allows us to keep producing in-depth, thoughtful content that cuts through the noise and gets to the heart of what's happening in aerospace. This has been Kevin, reporting from Great SpaceX, where our eyes are always on the stars. Thank you for being part of this community. And remember, no matter how distant the dream may seem, with curiosity, imagination, and persistence, no horizon is unreachable. Keep looking up.